This is the Millennials in Multifamily podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. We interview industry experts to unlock key information that will help young professionals break into the multifamily world in order to create long-term and short-term wealth. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to iTunes and leave a rating and written review so we can reach more listeners.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials in Multifamily podcast. I'm your host, John Stober, with my co-host, Fritz Ritter, and today we have Omar Khan as our guest, founder of Boardwalk Wealth. Being a CFA and coming from a banking background, Omar is one of the most sophisticated investors you'll find. His knowledge of underwriting, market analysis, property selection, and financing options is practically unmatched. Omar is not one to mince words, and on today's episode, he tells you exactly what you're doing wrong that makes you unable to compete with guys like him. Omar, thanks so much for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials and Multifamily podcast. Could you just go a little deeper into your background and how you got into the multifamily syndication business?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. My background's very simple. It's a lot like a lot of kids who go to, top 10, top 15 schools in big cities. You graduate, you work on the institutional side, sell side. And in my case, I work sell side and buy side, which means you do the advisory, investment banking, equity research, basically in these institutional banks. And then basically on the buy side means you're part of a team or part of a company that is actually acquiring these assets, right? So you're on both sides of the transaction. I did that for about a decade plus. Then I moved down to the US because I was getting married. My wife's a physician. She was right about done with her residency. And it was easier for me to move down than for her to move up. Long story short, I moved down. My family has a lot of commercial real estate. So, it's not the main line of business. I kind of just know what's going on. And my family's fairly financially sophisticated, so we've structured deals. And I moved down to the US, and I was kind of thinking what to do. And one of my really close family friends from Toronto, he gave me a call. They were restructuring an office portfolio in Houston. I was in Dallas. I joined him just because he's a really good friend of mine. And we did that. We did a couple of other deals, and that's kind of how I started. It wasn't like I didn't have anything about, like people want to be in real estate or people want to do a certain career, right? Like being a physician or something else. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that. It was just I had a lot of skill sets. They happened to match. And real estate is really like the dumbest way in the entire world to raise a lot of money. Try being like a tech VC or something, and you really need to have a good track record. Any Joe Blow in the world can be a syndicator these days.
So how did your experience as an investment banker and a CFA translate into multifamily syndication? What skills carried over?
Well, I knew how debt works. What are the covenants? What do you have to look? So from a legal and structuring point of view, I know how deals work. I was a model monkey. When you're starting out, everybody's a model monkey, right? So, I knew how deals are run, how operations, to a high level wise, how things happen, and basically how deals are structured, and more importantly, how do you get out of problems if you have problems? Because eventually they all become a financial issue, one way or the other, right? So, those kind of experiences helped me, right? But at the end of the day, I don't do all the work myself. I hire people, I have employees, I have partners, and we divvy up the work amongst ourselves. But I'm the guy at the top who's kind of making sure everything gets done.
Mm-hmm. So what other roles did you have to hire out and bring in partners for?
Oh, property managers. I have a couple of marketing guys, property managers, marketing guys, and different people from time to time we bring in depending on our needs for operations.
Mm-hmm. So operations was not your expertise. It was the...
No, but making sure that we never run out of cash is one of my expertise. Mm-hmm. And operations don't have a tendency of not running when you don't have money.
Yep. Very true.
Right? So as long as you have the money, man, and you know how to manage your books properly and you know how to get out of hopefully you know how to avoid problems before they happen. But, nobody can do that all the time. So then you know how to get out of problems. So if you understand that, at least from a financial aspect, obviously that's not the only thing in the world, right? There's lots of other moving parts. But if you nail that part down and you've got the money, a lot of other problems have a tendency to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. So compared to what you were doing in the investment banking world, why is buying a multifamily property so much simpler in your opinion?
Because I don't have, first of all, not everybody I deal with is a type A asshole, number one, right? Who's used to working $100 a week and is a complete overachiever, right? So you have to realize it's like any business, right? Business people, depending on who they are, what they are, if you find the right niche, right, find the right person, you can get some sort of an edge, right? But when you're basically working with people who work 100 hours a week, and that's on a bad week, best of luck trying to compete with those people. They are going to eat you up alive, right? So, I mean, it's at that. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's way easier to raise millions of dollars for a real estate deal than it is to, say, raise it for, say, a biotech startup, right? Or you have a new drug, but you need, I don't know, $20 million just to go test it for 2 years, right? The marketing is way harder for that. But for a real estate deal, the marketing is way simpler. And therefore, it is easier to raise money. So, ergo, I don't like to make my life difficult. So here I am.
So, Omar, what did that first deal look like? Kind of what was your role in that, and how did that play out for you?
Oh, I had a lot of relationships growing up, just based, schools I'd gone to, the professional personal networks I had. So a lot of those relationships basically helped me in terms of the money raise side of things and the capital or that side of things. But again, you have to realize those relationships were there because I had a decade plus of those relationships built up professionally, as an example. Right. So those guys knew my background. They kind of had, and I wasn't like pitching them, hey, give me your money, like before I'd even met them. We already had a relationship. We'd already worked through a lot of deals. So by the time I was doing my own thing, I was in a very different spot than some other people. Right. So, but again, if I'd started 10 years earlier, I'd be way ahead in this game. Right. Hopefully. So what my role was basically to be the in-between guy. Right. Because, some guys doing operations, some guys doing marketing. Eventually, it all just boils down to, hey, can you speak everybody's language? So operations people speak a different language, brokers speak a different language, lenders speak a different language, your equity partners speak a different language. Can you have somebody in the middle who can speak all these languages and kind of manage the flow of traffic more than anything else? Because you've got to realize, when you've got a 20, 25, 30, $40 million project and you got 60 days to close, it's like bam, 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 right? So you don't have time to think. You don't have time to, go read a book and figure out what's going on. You better have your shit together, right? So it's that sort of thing, right? But my point is, all those experiences, me and I'm sure I'm not the only one, obviously, like lots of my colleagues are in the similar position. They had built into those experiences over 10, 12, 13, however long they were working. So it wasn't like one day they decided to get up, decided to be a real estate syndicator. I know some guys in tech, they decided to be a tech guy, right? They had a lot of experiences. And because of those experiences, when they did decide to do a role, like I was doing a role, it wasn't like we were thrown into the deep end, completely at least.
So I can see how your role would give you access to a lot of capital and equity. Why do you think those investors were interested in leaving whatever realm they knew? Because in investment banking, you have different analysts have different sectors, whether it's biotech, tech, manufacturing. Why do you think those investors were interested in investing into multifamily real estate?
They weren't interested in investing in multifamily real estate. They were interested in investing with me. There's a big difference, right? Because even when you guys go to do your deals, if it's your first, second, third deal, most people aren't necessarily just giving you money because it's a real estate deal and, oh my God, it's the greatest thing in the world. You have some sort of a personal relationship with that person, right? And that person thinks, A, you're not a crook, B, you're competent, right? So yeah, the deal might be really great, but if some random guy off the street showed up with that deal, that person might not be as inclined to give their hard-earned money to, say, you, if you were that random person. But let's assume you have a 10-year plus positive relationship with somebody, right? Where they know you're a professional person, you're a go-getter, you say what you do what you're going to say, you're honest, you're competent. And then 10, 12 years or 2 years or 1 year, however, X number of years later, you go to them. Now you have a relationship which is not just transactional, right? So that's the biggest reason. And the other reason also is, man, everybody likes to make money. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody likes to not make money, right? But the trust, the personal relationship and the trust is very important, right? Because without that, I mean, none of these other things matter.
Absolutely. So let's carry this over into the underwriting. So common theme that we've been hearing the last few years or so is underwrite conservatively. Everyone needs to be underwritten conservatively.
Who do you think is going to tell you that they don't underwrite conservatively?
Exactly. So now that this whole thing with the coronavirus is sweeping the country, have you changed your underwriting at all? Are you forecasting negative rent growth or higher exit cap rates? But how are you?
My friend, nothing has changed from our end. Nothing. It's business as usual. Okay. The reason why nothing has changed from our end is because, for the lack of a better word, man, this isn't our first rodeo for any of our partners, me and my partners, right? We've seen, again, are we immune to ever having a loss? No. Everybody can make a mistake and you can get a loss, or any of those things can happen. But right now, as of today, which is March 21st, right? Nothing has happened so far. But hey, this situation keeps changing on a day-to-day basis. What I do know is a lot of these mentorship group students and all of these guys, some guys an IT guy, some guys this guy, and everybody's doing everything part-time, right? Because it's so easy to do these things. Yeah, they're up shit's creek with no paddle because they've got no money and they have no operational experiences and they're already hemorrhaging money. This was before the coronavirus thing happened. So now, for instance, God forbid, let's hope it doesn't happen, but God forbid, if we do have a prolonged period of, say, either some sort of unemployment rates going up, which it seems like it might happen, or, for instance, people not having enough cash in the deal, right? Just extra operating capital lying around. Yeah, that's going to create a lot of problems, right? And that's when you start seeing the dominoes fall. But in the meantime, it's too early to say anything. So I don't know if anything major is going to happen to anybody, but for us, nothing's changed. We were still same, we're all paranoid all the time, whether it was good times, bad times. If you had delinquent tenants, doesn't matter if it's good or bad time, we're collecting rent on them. We're always pushing up occupancy. Bam. All this BS you hear about, oh, your property should only be 93, 94% filled because this means you're not charging top of the market rent. Yeah, this is complete BS by guys who don't know what they're doing. You can be 98, 99% occupied, provided you've gone through the bulk of your renovation process, right? And still be top of the market rents. If your marketing is on point, if your lead generation is on point, and if your operations are on point.
So in your underwriting, if you're saying you're operating at 98% occupancy and you're at the top
when you're stabilized, right?
Correct.
Because if you're, say, renovating, say, 20 units at a time, then there's no way you can be 98% occupied for most, say, 200 unit buildings, right?
Absolutely. So are there other line items in that underwriting that you're going to have to increase the expenses on, let's say
advertising for sure. You're going to have to increase on. Bad debt will probably go up. Your vacancy potentially goes up, depends where you are. Everybody keeps telling you, right? Oh, buy C-class properties. And the funny thing was, a lot of that's code basically for saying I can't afford a B-class property. It's a bit like me saying I hate private jets. I don't hate private jets. I just can't afford one. Or I hate a Ferrari. I just can't afford one, right? So, look, you're going to realize that a lot of these Class B plus, potentially even Class A type buildings, potentially, probability-wise, they are going to be fine. And a lot of these lower income tenants, unfortunately, are going to get washed away because a lot of these folks can't work from home. Their jobs require them to, say, go to a restaurant or a gas station or, say, a tire shop or some version of that, right? And those businesses, unfortunately, are forced to close down. So if you're already, say, making $35,000, $40,000 a year, then you don't have any income, then we all know the stat, something like 40% of Americans can't come up with $400, if their life depended on it, right?
Yep.
You understand? It's a no-brainer then, right? Your bad debt's going to go up. Your vacancy is going to go up. If you're smart, you should start offering a lot of concessions. Your advertising definitely needs to go up for sure. And over, say, a 12-month period, your loss to lease might also go up.
Mm-hmm. So as you were underwriting these deals during the good times, what metrics or what were you using into your model to determine how much you need in your cash reserves to weather a storm like this? Was it 6 months, 12 months? How long?
I have right now, like, for instance, tomorrow, if the world stopped, like if we had 0%, I just actually did it for some guys. If we literally had 0% occupancy, I can survive for 15 months right now.
Wow.
In both of my properties.
And was that model?
Yeah, that model assumes 0% occupancy. I board up the entire thing. I put up a board outside that says, we are not accepting any residents, go to hell.
So is that
and I just keep paying the debtor, by the way. I have to keep paying the lender, right? Can't get out of that obligation, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a stress test.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't look, but my point is, look, you got to realize the bank is always going to find a way to get their money out of you. It doesn't matter. We could have the end of days and the rapture happening, and there's going to be some banker who wants his money back from you. Trust me on this.
So was that 15 months of 0% occupancy? Was that modeled out when you were acquiring the asset?
What we had a lot of cash built in. Now, I don't know the exact ratio because that's on a deal by deal basis. But what always happens is, man, I have my numbers. I'm going to communicate way lower numbers to investors, obviously, right? Because I don't want to overpromise. I'm allergic to that. Mm-hmm. But my property manager has to give me a way higher budget, and when we have to work to that budget, right? So let's assume to my investors, I promise $100. My numbers say I'm going to be at 130. My property manager has got to be at 150, 160. You understand? So at each step, I have to build buffers because, hey, first of all, my numbers could be wrong. The property manager's numbers could be wrong, but we can't be wrong in front of the investor. So you got to keep building buffers on top of buffers. And what does that mean? That means you're not a cowboy in the good times, but your ass doesn't get handed to you in the bad times also, right?
Absolutely. And that's actually a recurring thing we've been hearing over and over again is offering more safety and security than these sky-high returns with, say, a bridge loan without much operating cash to weather.
Hey, I got lots of bridge loans, man. I love bridge loans. I don't even understand how you can be a syndicator and take fixed rate debt. That is like the dumbest thing in the world somebody can tell me. And all these guys who've taken fixed rate debts now certainly can't get out of their deals because their prepayment penalties are like millions of dollars right now.
That's actually something we heard from another guest. He said he gets the floating rate debts.
Yeah.
And he said right now they look like geniuses.
Not just guys. Okay, this is what I'm trying to tell you. A lot of what you hear on the internet is said by keyboard jockeys who have no experience in anything in life. Because look, it's very easy for me to tell you, hey, Fritz, and here, John, hey, here's how you should spend your money, right? But it's a completely different game how I'm going to spend my money, right? Like we all know we've got to exercise, we've got to eat right. We should say, have good relationships with our friends and family because it's good for our mental health and, body and all that. Yeah, how many people do that? 0% of the people in the world do that, right? We all know this stuff. We all know we've got to be conservative. Nobody does it. So every time you think that fixed rate debt is a better idea, if you're a syndicator, which means you want to get out in 2 or 3 or 4 years, right? Now, if say it's you and Fritz, right? And you buy a property and y'all going to hold on to it for 20 years or 12 years or some really long period of time. Yeah, close your eyes, get fixed rate debt. Just close your eyes. You don't need to, why worry about it, right? But if you are going to exit out of your properties in 2 or 3 or 4 years, like 99.999% of the syndicators, in fact, let me take that back, like 100% of the syndicators, okay? Getting fixed rate debt means essentially when you do that, that basically tells me you have a very low single digit IQ at the best of days. Because this just means you just cannot think through a financing problem, which is like 101 level stuff. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't be in charge of the financing then, which means your talents might be good somewhere else, but you should not be involved in terms of taking debt-based decisions on your property.
So playing devil's advocate here.
There is no devil's advocate, man. If you're a syndicator, you want to get out in 2 or 3 years, you can't take fixed rate debt. And I'll tell you why. You know why? Because what happens is, let's assume you've got a 10-year debt or 7 or 12, whatever, you pick a number, right? Mm-hmm. You got to realize, man, when a bank or an agency, they give you a loan, you might get 1 or 2 loans a year, right? But they're processing 1 or 2 loans by like 8 a.m. in the morning, right? So let me explain to you how the lender sees this. When, for instance, you take a fixed rate debt, the lender, first of all, you have to realize nobody keeps these loans on their books. They have to securitize it and sell it to somebody else. So what does that securitized piece mean? What it says is, John said he is going to pay this debt for 12 years at, say, 5%, right? So every year he's going to pay 5%, right? Which means that if now me as a lender goes to sell it to, say, Fritz, I tell Fritz, hey, John's going to pay 5% on this loan for the next 12 years, so you can expect this income coming in, right?
Right.
Cool. Now Fritz has made his plans. I made his plans about what we're going to do with this income, and everybody else has made their plans, right? But John decides to shortcut the system. And in 3 years, John comes back and says, yeah, I'm kind of done. I just want to get out of this loan, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what the problem is? The problem is I now have to go to Fritz and tell him, that guy John said he's going to pay you 5% for the next 9 years. Yeah, he's not really going to do that. right? So you know what Fritz tells me? Fritz tells me, that's great. That guy can go pound sand. And what this guy now has to do is he has to pay me the differential between what interest I can get right now in the market, because I have to now, when I get this money, I have to float it back into the market, right? So whatever return I get there, minus, and I take whatever return I was expecting from John, whatever is the difference, and usually it's in millions of dollars for these big deals. Yeah, that's the money John has to give me, which will, and John doesn't even have to give me this money. This will come out of the sales price.
Right.
Okay? So you got no option. And if your entire business plan was to sell in 2 or 3 years, right? As an example, because look, I'm a syndicator. Every syndicator has to sell in 2 or 3 years because 90% of the total compensation you make, 85, 90%, you make upon sale. Right? I mean, the fees just kind of keep the lights on, but it's really the equity you're fighting for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you want to go sell in 2 or 3 years, what kind of jackass should be making this decision? I mean, think about it. You already know you're going to sell in 2 or 3 years, right? Now, let's assume if you're say concerned and you say, well, you know, if I get really short-term debt, let's assume a 2008 crisis might happen. That's called maturity risk. I don't want to be forced to exit at a time when the market is really bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then my hands are tied and I can't do anything even though I've done all the work, right? So you can get long-term floating rate debt from the agencies. You don't even have to go to the bank. Don't go to anybody. Agencies offer it. You know how much it costs to get out of that? It costs 1% of the loan amount. So 1 point on the loan amount to get out, which is a really cheap price if you think about it, versus the millions of dollars you're going to pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of smart syndicators, as an example, were very intelligent, but say, hey, I don't want to take bridge loan because whatever, my crystal ball says something, which is, by the way, totally acceptable, right? But I want to take maturity risk off the table. Well, they can go to the same agencies that are giving them fixed rate loans, get a floating rate loan because they know they're going to exit in 2 or 3 or 4 years. And bam, they've solved the problem right there. No big prepayment penalties. No, your lender is going to hold you hostage, even though you busted your ass for 3 years straight working, right? Bada bing, bada boom, you're done. Because you already knew you were going to do something. So there is no devil's advocate. And if any, I'm not saying you, but if any syndicator on your show comes and tells you that fixed rate debt is better, and assuming they want to sell in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years time,
Mm-hmm.
you should put, I'll send you an image of a dumbass, you should put it on their head.
Hey, I got
this
a
is
question.
so insane. This is so insane that you're like, dude, like I don't even know what to tell you here, man.
Omar, I got a question about the floating rate debt. Is it the kind of the same qualifications as far as like occupancy or stuff like that with the agency?
Yeah.
Exact same thing.
Exact same process, man. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. You know what? If you're that damn concerned that suddenly this is going to be Germany before World War I and there's going to be hyperinflation and you should just stock up on guns and ammo and gold, right? If you're that sort of a person, you can literally go buy this thing called an interest rate cap, right? Which basically mitigates, hey, let's assume you buy your floating rate is at 3%, right? And you buy an interest rate cap. It's just a derivative. It's like a call or put option, depending on how you buy it, right? You can say, hey, if the rate goes above 4%, as an example, I just made it up. You can decide whatever you want, right? If the rate goes above 4%, anything above 4%, my counterparty will pay. Your counterparties who are selling you these options are typically banks like JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, Credit Suisse. You have a way higher chance of defaulting than a JP Morgan does. I can like assure you of that. Right? JP Morgan's worth whatever, $300 billion, manages $3 trillion, whatever it is. Yeah, they're not going to go out of business. But
So
some
is that kinda
syndicator in Florida might go out of business, right?
Is that kind of like insurance then? That,
Yeah, look, it is an option. Like it's like a simple option, but literally you can view it like insurance.
Okay. That's
Right?
awesome.
It's like literally you're just viewing it like insurance. And you know how much it costs? So I closed on a property in December in Atlanta. It was like it's like a $20 million loan roughly, right? It cost me $17,000 to get it.
Wait, $20 million loan, $17,000.
Yeah. Just to get this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you think about it, 17 grand isn't a lot of money on $20 million worth of exposure.
It's about a tenth of a percent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm telling. And this is, by the way, what I'm telling you is not like some sort of secret that I know and nobody else knows. This is very, very common knowledge. It's not like I'm telling you something that only like 5 people in the world know about, right? This is very common knowledge. If you talk to any lender, they will tell you the exact same thing. Yeah, so there's nothing hidden here. You don't need to pay some guy, some guru online, $50,000 to get this info.
Omar, that's really good information. I'll be pretty open. I just learned that, so I appreciate you for sharing.
No, hold on. My point is, you might learn it. Like, for instance, I learned it at one moment in time, but this knowledge is in the public realm, is what I'm trying to say, right? For instance, if you and I were to Google it, we could find it. It's not like I know like this one cool way that, you don't know and nobody else knows. This is in the public realm. So eventually, like the way I found it, because I can tell you, I didn't invent this thing, right? Right. I also found it from somebody. So you found it, but it's not like this thing is hidden.
Should be something people are utilizing.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you're talking about most syndicators are viewing these multifamily properties as flips, correct?
Everybody is viewing them as flips. Man, what do you mean most? 100% of syndicators are viewing them as flips.
So if you're getting these floating rate mortgages, are you still underwriting to a longer term period?
My friend, you can underwrite to whatever long period of time you want to underwrite to, right? Because look, what I'm saying is, it all depends on your business plan. Like I tell you at the start. Like, for instance, Fritz and John decide to go buy a property together. Or let's Fritz, John, and 15 other people decide. And in their legal documents, they've agreed that they are going to hold on to the property for 12 or 15 years. Again, things can change, but let's assume that's your business plan, right? You are going to be a long-term holder. Well, I can tell you, your business plan is completely different than all the other syndicators in the world. Okay? I'm a syndicator. Our entire business plan is, if you're buying a value add property, you go in, do the value add, and you flip it in 2 or 3 years' time. That's it. There's no magic here, right?
Right.
So it depends on your business plan. If your business plan is to hold it, say, for 12 years, you get a loan or some financing options, and you arrange your business and your cash and all the other things you're going to do and all your other activities you're going to do according to your business plan. If your business plan is 2 years, potentially 2 years to flip, but you should obviously give yourself a little bit more room, right? You don't want to nobody can nail it down to the date, right? Well, you got a way different business plan, right? So you got to pick what type of thing you want to do, or rather, what do you want to accomplish, and then put the pieces around it, right? What you can't do is get a loan first, raise money or either or, and then decide what you're going to do, right? Because, doesn't really make any sense, right? So you got to decide where you're going first before you decide to hop into your car and just start driving in that direction. Right?
Absolutely. I guess what I'm getting at is, with a short-term plan such as 2 to 3 years, do investors typically want to see a backup plan such as a 10-year hold in case the market was to...
I underwrite to a 5-year hold, and if I haven't received any pushback. But again, look, you've got to realize part of this is your personal relationship, your background, and your positioning in the market as well, right? Now, for instance, even though I'm trying to get out in 2 or 3 years' time, I'm still underwriting to a 5-year hold, right? Because like I said, I don't got a crystal ball, man. I can't nail my last renovation down to the date and hour, right? So I give myself a little bit of room, right? But what I'm not going to do is, if I plan to exit in 2 years' time, I underwrite to a 10-year hold, right? Because that's just not my business plan. And if somebody has an issue, well, there's 2 options. Number one, I always tell people, look, that's what the business model is. Look, I'd be happy to do a deal if you give me all the money, and, I do a deal whatever way you want me to do a deal. We can then go look for that type of a deal. But if you're not going to give me all the money, then what do you want me to do about it? Because I'm not going to change my entire business. And not just me. Nobody should change their entire business plan based on the opinion of one person who may or may not even know what he's talking about.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
But hey, if they pay you 100% of the money, go for it, man. He who pays, what was that saying? He who pays the piper gets to call the tune. Right?
I've heard something along those lines. He who pays the bills makes the rules.
Hey, I 100% agree with you.
I was going to ask, what type of multifamily deals are you targeting?
We target typically, mid 80s plus value add deals in B plus neighborhoods, right? These are typically, if you can just boil it down to one stat, median income is about $45,000-$50,000 a year, straight up, right? It's not the bottom of the barrel, and again, not top of the barrel. And straight up, top of the barrel, I can't afford doing a volume of deals at like $300,000 a unit. I just can't. It's not like I think those deals are bad. Obviously, it's on a case-by-case basis. I think some of those deals are stellar. But like I said about that private jet example, I mean, I don't hate private jets just because I can't afford them.
Right.
Something to work towards.
Yeah, well, look, obviously, I agree with you. Well, like if you guys give me a private jet, I am definitely going to take it. I'm not going to reject it.
We're working on it right now.
Okay, you let me know when you get one for me.
We'll let you get shotgun.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
So with these mid-80s product, though, that you're targeting.
Mid-80s and above, like there's one or two that are 90s and 2000s as well.
Right. So it's not super old. What type of value adds are you implementing under these properties? Are they heavy?
Again, man, that depends, man. That depends on the property. Like some of these are properties. The one in Atlanta had no deferred maintenance, but hadn't been like renovated in God knows 25 years. But the previous owners had done a pretty good job. There were no deferred maintenance left. So all you got to do is bring it up to market. And there's a few competitors who've already gone through an extensive value add process, which is basically putting lipstick on a pig. But there's one mid-70s product we've done in Jacksonville, which was like if a bomb had went off there. I'm not even joking with you. It wasn't sure. It was like, honestly, I'm not even joking. A war had happened there, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that was a way heavier lift, right? Exteriors wise, interiors wise, right? So again, when we go in, like we said about the business plan, you kind of have to know to say an 80-90% chance, right? I'm not saying nobody knows 100% for sure, because a lot of times you just have to roll with the punches. But you have to know what direction you're going before you get into the car and drive in that direction, right? Mm-hmm. So it depends on what we're trying to accomplish, what type of product it is, what is our business plan, and do we think, hey, is it doable in the time frame that we've set ourselves to do? Because if this Jacksonville property was a 600-unit property and had the same amount of deferred maintenance, repairs, renovation, yeah, there's no freaking way we would have been able to get it done in 1.5 years. Right? Because just the magnitude of the building is so big that our business plan would not have been implemented in that time.
Right.
Yeah. So it just depends on the business plan and what we're trying to accomplish. And then we decide what are we doing.
Are you struggling to understand how to underwrite multifamily properties? Hi, I'm John Stober, and I completely understand your problem. I thought underwriting would come naturally to me due to my background in finance and accounting. But I quickly found out that there aren't a lot of resources that cover this subject. I had no idea whether what I was doing was right, wrong, or just original. I don't want you to have to pick up little nuggets here and there like I did. So I wrote an ebook called How to Analyze Big Apartment Buildings and Make Them Feel Small that puts together all the pieces of the puzzle. We're also giving away a deal analyzer with the ebook, and they're both completely free. Don't wait as long as I did to start chasing financial freedom. Go to bit.ly/underwriting ebook and get your free copy today. So it sounds like you're pretty involved in the Southeast. What attracted you to those markets?
It's, again, like I said about the real estate thing, man, you don't have to explain it to people, man. It's so easy to sell. Look, you have to understand, you don't have to tell people where Atlanta is. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't have to tell people where Dallas is. You don't have to tell people where Jacksonville is, but you definitely have to tell them where Podunk, Mississippi is, right? Yeah. Or I don't know, Macon, Georgia is. It's not that far away from Atlanta, right? So, or Warner Robins, Georgia is, or I don't know, pick some random place in the Midwest. Again, nothing wrong with those places, but if you have to go explain to people where it even is on the map, right? Then you're going to have a lot of trouble, right? Just again. Can you find a better deal there? Maybe. But do you want to, put $250,000 of your hard money up front and then risk the chance that it may or may not happen? Because I don't. Mm-hmm. Right? That's why. And plus, it's got all that usual job story here about every syndicator is going to tell you job growth, income growth, population growth, blah, 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 blah. You know that. Yeah.
So keeping it simple.
Yeah. Why, dude? Like, I don't want more shit in my life. I want less shit in my life. Who the hell wants to take on more pain for a similar type of return, right? Mm-hmm. That's when I just like less stress in my life. I like less stress in my life. I want to give less stress to people. and I just want to do I do what I have to do, but I don't got to do more than that.
So on the flip side, though, with these markets being so competitive, how much harder has it become in recent years to find deals in them? I think that's why a lot of people have branched out into the secondary and tertiary markets.
Well, yeah, it's competitive, but I mean, isn't that what we're getting paid to do?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I get paid to do. I get paid to basically have deep relationships with brokers, lenders, people, owners in the market. So whenever they want to sell, and if it's at a price that I want to buy it at. So yeah, I mean, if it's hard, yeah, great. I mean, lots of people are doing way harder stuff than I'm doing. Like my wife's a physician. Right now, it's Saturday. She's heavily pregnant. We're going to have her second child in 2 weeks. She's at the hospital. You know what? People do way tougher shit every day, and nobody bitches about it. So if it's hard, it's hard. I mean, look, you get paid to do a job, right? I mean, look, there's people fighting overseas in armies, right? And they got a pretty hard job. I don't see them bitching about it.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's that hard to go look for a deal in Atlanta, if you feel it's that stressful, maybe you should find a different job.
Are there any strategies you're using to kind of help your deal flow out in those areas?
Oh, it's all relationships.
Relationships.
It's all relationships. None of this stuff about reaching directly to owners. None of that crap works. You're not wholesaling $50,000 houses. This is basically, look, if somebody's buying a $20, $30, $40 million property, or rather somebody's selling and you're buying, or some version of that, think about it. If somebody owns a $20, $30, $40, $50, $80 million property, they must have done something, even if they got it in inheritance, right? Mm-hmm. They are not that dumb. So just because you write it in a really cute letter and attach a picture of your dog in that letter, nobody gives a crap, right? These are sophisticated people who, look, you want to make money, they want to make money, man. Why make it harder, right? Mm-hmm. Because you attach a picture of your dog, nobody gives a crap, right? Or you write a heartfelt bio about, I don't know, what struggles you've had in your life. Oh, yeah, okay, great. It goes into the trash. In fact, they don't even see it because it's typically their office person seeing it, or their assistant seeing it, or their analyst seeing it, so they don't even get to it. So all of these things are run through brokers, right? Because brokers are specialized people in the market who deal with all of this stuff. So you need to have good relationships with brokers. How do you get good relationships with brokers? You close deals. How do you close deals? You have good relationships with brokers. It's a circular reference, right? So it's one of those things where you just have to do it. It's a bit like, look, I can tell you like how to ride a bicycle by giving you a book, but eventually you got to get on the bicycle and just do it yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? It's just one of those things. And again, there's nothing wrong, by the way, with going to secondary and tertiary markets. Again, if that is your business plan. But if the only reason you're going there is because things are becoming way harder, then, I don't know what to tell you, man. Things are supposed to be hard.
Absolutely. Well, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah, right? Everybody would be Bill Gates rich.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it would be nice if I had his money. I'd buy you a private jet.
I would say you wouldn't be worried about that jet anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be like, I'd buy each of you a private jet, man.
So are you saying that there's no value in even trying to develop relationships with the owners at all? You focus solely on the brokers.
Yeah, I don't have any relationships. Look, I've developed relationships with owners because I bought properties from them, right? Mm-hmm. Through the brokers. But buddy, you're not wholesaling houses here, man. You're not buying 50,000 crap holes in the middle of nowhere, okay? Mm-hmm. Your personal bio story, none of that stuff matters. Maybe, look, it matters once you are offering a competitive price and somebody meets you, and let's assume you have a similar price as the other guy, and the other guy's a complete asshole, right? And you're very easy to deal with. Oh yeah, it's going to make a big difference there, right? Because being agreeable, having a good person, not being a pushover, but having a pleasant personality, being easy and fun to work with, those are good qualities, right? We should all try to have them. Versus, the opposite. But if you're paying $20 million and the other guy's paying $40 million, no amount of you being a good old boy is going to help you.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. Yeah, nobody's going to take a $20 million haircut because you got a picture of your dog on your bio.
That's a good point.
Sounds like somebody sent you a picture of their dog.
No, somebody did. I'm telling you, look, I hear a lot of these guys saying, I'm direct to owner. I was like, great. This means you're never going to do a deal and you're poor. Good for you.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to get back into kind of your asset management plan now that people are starting to stop work and it looks like we're heading into a recession. How have you been adjusting your operations?
Well, like I said, so far nothing has happened, right? But you also have to realize we've been so late on, as a country, we've been so late in our response to this pandemic that already we are now putting things into place we should have placed like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, right? Because we wait for bad things to happen and then we realize, oh my God, bad things have happened. So
reactive.
we are very reactive as opposed to being proactive, right? But that being said, look, what do I think people should be doing? And rather what we are doing right now is, or rather what you should be doing from day one is continue, for instance, basically providing a good quality service to your residents. And that just doesn't mean, hey, I gave you a renovated unit and screw you, right? And give me more money. That means, look, like I said, it pays to be helpful. It pays to be likable. It pays to be pleasant, right? In life, just generally in life, all right? People want to deal with people who are easy to deal with, right? Or not. Nobody's saying you got to be a pushover, right? So look, if you're already, as an example, that sort of a person and that sort of an organization, right? I mean, you keep to your business plan, but you're agreeable and nice to work with. More and more residents will want to work with you. So what should you be doing? Number one, straight up start offering more concessions on move-ins, renewals, whatever it is, right? Just start offering concessions. Don't even wait for it. Don't wait for people to ask you. Just start doing it right now. Because the more, again, don't give the house away, but if you offer concession, then you say, let's assume you offer a $100 concession or a $200 concession on, say, a $1,200 a month unit. Right? Well, yeah, somebody took the first month at $1,000, but you know what? You also got $1,000 versus that thing lying around for a month, and now you lose $1,200 worth of revenue, right? Number one. Number two, become even more proactive in dealing with your residents. So you have to tell them, look, we're closing the common areas and, all that jazz. But for instance, what are we doing on our assets? For the senior citizens, we're having groceries delivered to their doorstep because they shouldn't leave. They're most at risk. They should not be leaving, right? So we're having groceries and medicines delivered to their doorstep. We're also offering them hot meals. So they just tell us and we deliver them hot meals. This is on our own expense, right? Then, for instance, for people who have kids, a lot of folks, unfortunately, they can't afford being out of a job. It's not like they want to go to their job. They just can't afford being out of a job. Right? It's just the way it is. So for some of them, they might have, say, one parent at the house, or maybe they just have the kids at the house. Now, if you've got kids in the house and nobody's there to supervise, yeah, they are going to go do stupid things. Okay. Every kid in the world is going to go do stupid things. Doesn't matter where you're from. Okay. So for some of those kids, for the younger kids, we've started offering them care packages like coloring books, all this stuff like coloring books, crayons, flashcards, some board games, all of that sort of stuff. And of course, we're going to ramp that up because most of our properties, somehow we just have a lot of younger kids, not old enough kids, but we do have some of them. So we have to take care of them. Then what you have to do is you have to basically reduce your rent. It's kind of a delicate balance, right? You have to basically charge renovated rents or move tenants above, increase the rents, but you have to do it in a manner, for instance, which they are able to absorb that and they're able to see that, look, this is the value that I'm getting. So as an example, if a tenant's verified income is $40,000 and their earlier rent was $1,200 a month, right? So what's the rough math? It says, because typical screening standards are whatever your monthly income is, whatever your monthly rent is, multiply that by 12, divide by your annual income, gross annual income. If it's below 33%, this means it's in the affordable range. Right? That's like the rough criteria, right? So let's assume somebody's rent right now is 1,200 times 12, divided by 40,000, right? Which means they're at 36% already, right? Well, you already have to verify their income. When they're coming in, you have to verify their income. That's just the way it is. Otherwise, you can't screen properly. Well, don't jack up that guy's rent. Or work with that guy to kind of figure out, for instance, what kind of rent premium, if at all, you should be charging them. Because look, you might want to be a cowboy and charge $300 more because that was your business plan. But guess what? That guy might pay you for 1 month, but 2, 3, 4 months, he just doesn't have the capacity to pay you. So he's going to be behind on his rents. So it's better you take slightly less money, but you keep getting paid that money. Right?
Yeah.
Those sort of thing. Then what do you got to do? For instance, unnecessary expenditures that you're going to spend, for instance, anything short of an emergency repairs and maintenance, we've just cut. Now, that's not to save costs. That's more because we don't want our maintenance techs and our residents, either or, to get infected or have the probability of getting infected. But in the short term, that's a cut in expenses if you look on your P&L, right? Yep. But where are your expenses going to go up? They're going to go up on things like advertising. You just got to fill up you got to have your hair on fire trying to get your occupancy up as much as possible. Okay.
Mhm.
Bam, bam, bam. You just cannot spend enough money on advertising right now. And then you go through your P&L and realize whether you want to cut contract services, you don't want to cut contract services, whether you want to pay more payroll costs, whether they go up just because you want to make sure your best managers stay at their job, right? So those are things that are property by property specific.
Are you expecting an uptick in turnover and legal expenses due to more evictions?
Well, you can't. In the states that we're in, it's advised that you don't evict people. And I'm not a slumlord. So at this time, if we have a good resident who's always been paying on time, but now has an issue, we work with those residents all the time. So I'm not going to shake that guy down for money in the time of his need. But yeah, I'm not going to evict people. Look, somebody is late, right? And they're habitually late, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a very different type of resident than somebody who always pays their bills on time, is a model resident, but because of current circumstances beyond their control, is now put in a position where they can't pay their bills or has a reduced capacity to pay their bills.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two very different cases.
Right.
So you then have to decide how to deal with those cases on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't think first of all, I think ethically and morally it's wrong to just evict people in a time like this. Just straight up, just have mass eviction. But think about it from the other end. You mass evict people. Where are you going to get new residents from, man? Do you think they just fall from the sky? Because your showings are going to go down because obviously a lot of people are hunkered down, right? They don't want to go out and look for a new apartment because it's just dangerous, right? I mean, so even if you evict people because you're trying to be a cowboy, yeah, best of luck trying to find residents.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to balance those out.
I bet some of those residents, they're still paying their own utility bills, right? Those aren't going back into your name?
Well, it depends what type of property you have. If you have a master metered property, they're all in your name. If you have an individually metered property, it's in the person's name.
Right. I'm assuming because your properties are 80s and newer that they are separately.
No, one or two of them are master metered, which we have a RUBS program.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are individually metered, in which case the person has to pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, you don't want to make somebody's life miserable, right? If they can't afford $50 and their utility is going to be cut off, and even though they could pay your rent, you know what's going to happen? They're not going to pay you your rent because nobody's going to live in an apartment which has no heat coming or no electricity, and they can't even warm their kids' milk. So they're probably going to skip on you. So like I said, look, if you were already a nice, agreeable person, you were already taking care of your residents by having regular resident appreciation events, taking care of their needs. You have a steep hill to climb, but it's less steep than somebody who's just a slumlord and shaking people down for money, because that person has a bad reputation to begin with. He or she does not have a good relationship. So when the relationship is already poisoned, your residents are going to be like, oh, screw this. I have a pretty good excuse to not pay this guy a dime.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying you have to do it on a case-by-case basis. But that's why while some things change, a lot of things don't change. Because look, you got to be a nice person to begin with, man. I mean, nobody likes dealing with assholes, right? So you shouldn't use the pandemic as an excuse to suddenly not be an asshole, right? And then when the pandemic goes away, you're an asshole again, right? You should try to not be an asshole, period, right? So when you do that, and you diligently manage your operations, you take care of people, but the expectation is that they have to fulfill their end of the bargain. You don't have as steep of a hill to climb.
Our podcast show is changing the hearts and minds of slumlords everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're running up on time, so I wanted to get into the last segment of our show, which is called the Fast Five. It's just the same 5 questions that we ask every guest who comes on our show. So if you're ready, we will begin that.
Sure. Let's go for it.
So if you had to start all over again and you were in your early 20s, what would you do differently?
Oh, I wouldn't do anything differently, man. I had such a good time partying and working and all that other stuff in my 20s that I'm so glad it's all out of my system. Now, I might have started 2 years earlier, I guess, but I wouldn't have started 10 years ago because, man, I had a fantastic time. In my 20s, all through my teens, I would not change that for anything. And I see a lot of guys who were look, I'm South Asian. all the stereotypes are true. We study all the time. We're really good at math. I know that. But, I did have a fantastic time partying, having a good time traveling, and I wouldn't change that for anything in the world.
Like that.
I did.
I mean, I wish I had more money. But I guess everybody wishes they had more money, right?
Yeah. Very true.
Second question. How do you see young professionals adding the most value to experienced operators in the space?
Oh, give me all your money, man. Straight up. Give me all your money. You add a lot of value that way.
We don't have any money. We all have student debt.
Well, man, if you're broke, it doesn't really help, right? Look, I don't know about this value thing. I'll be very honest with you. I know it's very fashionable these days to say you got to add value. Look, my point is, if you don't have a skill to offer, it's kind of hard to offer value, it's out of nowhere, right? For instance, wife's a physician. As much as I would like to add value to her and her colleagues right now, I don't think you should have me at a hospital because I'll just be getting in the way.
Right.
Right. So value depends on what skills you have, right? And are those skills translatable for the person who you are potentially trying to develop a relationship with? And if they're not, well, then you should develop some skill that's helpful to that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, just saying I want to add value, well, sure, I want a lot more. I want a lot of money. Nothing's changed.
Private jet.
Private jet, nothing changed.
So a follow-up question then. Is there a skill that you see maybe older operators that a lot of them are lacking in?
Older operators are lacking in? Oh, yeah, straight up, dude. Old people suck with technology, man. Oh, my God. Jesus Christ. Old people want to do everything at snail's pace, man. Holy shit. You have no idea. It's frustrating sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want old people not giving me the money. I love you, old people, but it's just, sometimes you're like, Jesus Christ, can you just hurry up? I got shit to do in my life.
Yeah. My parents are working from home, and I just helped them hook up their Wi-Fi. Felt like a genius.
Oh, didn't they call you a hacker or something?
Okay.
Old people, the one thing old people have got going for them is experience, right? And I'll take experience over pace 9 times out of 10.
Oh, without a doubt.
Straight up, right? Mm-hmm. So, that counts for something.
Okay, so what's the biggest mistake you've made in your career, and how have you since adjusted your business because of this?
Oh, I didn't fire a lot of people quick enough. But then now I've realized when I started talking to people and hearing podcasts, I guess I'm not the only one with that problem. Mm-hmm. Because I was like, hey, maybe this person's going to change and I should work with this person and blah, blah, blah. And I realized, nah. Most people don't want to change.
Mm-hmm. We've definitely been in that boat.
Yeah. And I now I've realized, because now I had this problem, so I looked for it. I Googled it like everybody else. And I realized 90% of the world has had the same problem. So what was that saying? Hire slowly, fire quickly, or something.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah. And it's very true, by the way.
Very true. Fourth question. What's been your favorite way to incorporate technology and social media into your business?
Well, I just let my marketing guy do social media, so he's pretty good. I don't even use most of my social media. I'm not opposed to it. I got a kid. I got things going on, right? Technology, look, we use all project management softwares like Asana, Slack. Everything's on the cloud for me, basically, right? So I have stuff that's on my hard drive, but it automatically gets uploaded to the cloud. So let's assume I'm traveling, I can still access pretty much everything, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the big technology thing. I guess, that's technology, I guess.
Right. And then is there a book that has influenced you the most in your career?
No. I love reading books. You can see I got tons of books, and those are just the ones where
I can see your library behind you.
Yeah, it's not a library. It's just the books I've read this year, because I just read the books. Wow. And then not this year, in the past 6 months. No, this is year we just started, right? So basically I just get books, I read them, and then I just give them away to the library. So look, I love books, but is there one book? No, there's lots of books. Mm-hmm. Black Swan is a really good book, but there's lots of books, there's no one book which you can say, oh, I read that and then my entire life changed.
Change everything.
But I'm a big advocate of just reading, and I just really find it funny when people say, I read a book, but I heard it on my phone. I was like, well, bro, you didn't read the book. Come on.
Yeah, I'm not a big Audible fan.
No, I am an Audible fan. All I'm saying is don't say you read a book, okay? Just say you heard a book, Don't say I read 50 books this month. I was like, Jesus, what do you just read for a living?
I was going to ask, is there like 3 books that you think that people should read in this space?
No, I think there was this one book. What was that book about? It was a really good book. It was a textbook. There's this guy called Peter Linneman out of.
Yes, I have the book
Wharton.
right
Yeah,
there.
That's John's book right there.
It's a pain in the ass to
Read
read.
it off your recommendation.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to read that book. Oh my God,
It is dry.
Oh my God, if you ever want to go to sleep, you should read that book. You know,
You need a year's worth of Adderall just to read it.
Oh my God, you need like
I can't find it right now, but I think it's called
something. Just type Peter Linneman. It's like a blue.
Yeah, it's Real Estate Finance Risk and Opportunity.
Something like that, right? It's a good book, but Jesus, you can go to sleep, man, reading it. Right? That book, and honestly, I think the other thing is just learn financial modeling and learn accounting 101. You know, if you know accounting 101, you know financial modeling, you can kind of explain how things go from the profit and loss all the way to the balance sheet and backwards. Yeah, you really don't need anything else.
Awesome.
Very good.
But you need an open mind, right? You need an open mind to learn from people and all of that. But you should read. My point is you should read as a habit, but there's no like one seminal book you should read because that's going to change everything. You should just read as a habit.
Right. Constantly learning.
Yeah. Constantly. Everybody can teach you stuff. Like one cool thing, you know what I learned from a property manager of ours? We shouldn't call people tenants. We should call them residents because residents signify a long-term relationship. Tenants signify a transactional relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, when she told me that, I was like, damn, that's pretty good. I'm going to start using it. So now a lot of times I type tenants and because just out of habit, and then I go back to residents. Right?
I've definitely heard that before.
Yeah. I hadn't heard it, and I just heard it in the past few weeks. I was like, wow, this good for you, Amanda. It's pretty cool.
Go, Amanda.
Yeah.
Well, Omar, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials and Multifamily Podcast. Is there a way that our listeners or any potential investors could get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to our website, Boardwalk Wealth, BOARD, walkwealth.com, right on the front page. There's a little box on the bottom right. I think it's on the bottom right. It says name, email, and how you find out about us. Hopefully you know all 3 of those things. Just do it. You'll get an email. Verify your email. You're in our distribution list. You can also email me at Omar, OMAR, at boardwalkwealth, that's one word, .com. Bam. I'll get in touch with you. If I don't, one of my assistants will.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Omar. This has been a very, very interesting podcast, and I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us.
No, I'm very appreciative of you guys calling me. Hopefully you guys stay safe, healthy, and nobody gets the coronavirus.
That's right.
You too. And congratulations on the baby you and your wife are about to have.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Millennials in Multifamily Podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and a written review at iTunes so that we can connect with more people. Finally, head on over to kronosinvestmentpartners.com and sign up for our newsletter so you can stay updated on everything we're doing. If you're interested in partnering with us as we find new opportunities, you can also schedule a phone call with us under the Contact Us tab at kronosinvestmentpartners.com.